Hi. I think we've all said a phrase like, you make me feel whatever, fill in the blank, or that makes me feel whatever. We've all used phrases like that, I think. Now, if you take that phrase literally, it means that you or that's making me feel something has power to control what I feel. It's making me feel that way. It implies that when it comes to emotion, I must feel whatever whenever that happens. I don't have a choice of what to feel. It also means that nothing stands between that event, whatever it was, and my automatic emotion. If you think of it that way, that idea kind of pretty much makes us emotional puppets who are at the mercy of people and events in our lives. We don't get a choice what to feel. We are made to feel that way. Now, it feels that way sometimes, I think. And it doesn't feel very good when we feel it. But in reality, events or people or anything else, they don't automatically and immediately have to trigger specific emotions. In fact, they don't. We might not always be aware of it, but between the event that we're experiencing and the emotion that we're feeling about it, there's something in between that, and that is a thought, at least one thought. And it's that thought that can often determine kind of what emotion is going to follow. Now, we may not notice what that thought is, but it's good to be aware of it because that gives us a little bit more control about, what emotion is going to follow. Now, a couple of examples kind of brings that home, at least to me anyway, makes that point. Say I'm walking on a path in the woods towards dusk and it's kind of hard to see. And ahead of me on the path, I see what looks like a snake. And I'm deathly afraid of snakes. And what happens? Well, my thought is it's a snake. And the emotion that kicks in is fear. My breathing quickens, my blood pressure goes up, I may start to sweat, and I get ready to run or whatever. Now I take one more step closer and I realize that it's only a stick. So that thought, well, it's just a stick. Well, all the emotions disappear. My fear disappears and I go back to normal. It's that thought of what that thing was that brought on the emotion. Another example, I'm waiting at a stoplight and a friend of mine turns the corner right in front of me and I wave at that person. But that person doesn't wave back. Now, what do I think about that? If I think that that person snubbed me, or that person is angry at me or ignored me for some reason, my emotions may very well be anger or hurt or worry that I've done something to hurt them. But that's what that thought would do. Now, if my thought, on the other hand, was, well, they just didn't see me, well, then I would have none of those emotions. I'd just go on as usual. So it's those thoughts that kind of have a lot to say about what we're going to be feeling. Now, we usually have a choice about what to think about an event or about something. Something like, say, somebody insults us. One thing I can think is, well, that person's correct, which will probably result in me feeling some unpleasant emotion like anger or shame or something like that. I may even follow up that feeling with an action which might cause me problems, whatever that action might be. Or, on the other hand, I can choose to think that the person, well, they don't even know me. They don't know me well enough to even insult me or know who I am. Or I can choose to think that they're simply under some false impression, or that they are simply taking out some anger that's not even related to me, taking it out on me. And it's not even about me. See, I can think of all kinds of things like that. Those are different thoughts to have that I can choose to have. And what I choose to think will determine how I end up feeling about that event. Once we're into an emotion, we don't have much control over it. It's pretty hard to control it because emotions are not rational. By definition, they're not rational. They are emotional. They are part of our emotions. And they are good. They're not good or bad, they just are. And so, have you ever been successful at telling someone who's angry not to be angry? Well, it doesn't work because that's a rational suggestion and emotions are not rational. But before we get into an emotion, we do have some control over the thoughts that we have, the thoughts that precede the emotion. And that's where we can make a difference. That's when we can step in and have a little bit more control. And it can help us, being aware of that and choosing what to think can help us avoid some needless negative emotions and the hurtful, sometimes hurtful actions that follow. What can be helpful is getting, we can get used to noticing what thoughts typically precede our various emotions. And then we can practice changing or tweaking those thoughts so, kind of makes the following emotions better, more pleasant. And one way to practice that is to, think of a past event that triggered an emotion, some specific event, some specific emotion, and then try to identify what the thought was that preceded that emotion, like I did with someone who insulted me. What was the thought I was having? And then kind of, well, what different thought could I have had? Identify like 5 different thoughts you could have, and kind of write them down if that's helpful. And this is about a past event. And then with each of those thoughts, those 5 different thoughts, think of what emotion would have followed if you'd had each of those. Probably lots of different emotions could have followed. So, and some better than others. So that's a way of practicing. And if we practice that, if we practice something like that over and over again, we probably are going to get good at doing that. And in the future, when we do run into an actual event that's similar, we may be more able to choose the thought that precedes the emotion. And that will give us more choice over what we're going to be feeling. So that's a way of practicing, getting ready for those events that will come up again, over and over again. And if we see some that we usually have the same emotional reaction to, maybe we can change the thoughts that precede them a little bit and give us some leeway, give us some, help us to, kind of choose how it's going to go. The philosopher Rene Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am." Now we could adapt that saying pretty easily as, "I think, therefore I feel," meaning our thinking will determine what feeling follows. Now remembering that might help us better manage our emotions and reactions, which can make life much more pleasant.